Whether you keep them in your home or love to see them in theirs, these are the creatures that bring us all together.
Reptiles. We're going to be delving into the experiences of reptile lovers from around the block and around the world. This is the Reptile Talk Podcast. Boom! What's going on, everybody? This is Jeremy Turgeon from Brassman Reptiles.
And I'm Rob, and I'm keeping it real.
And this is our second remote stream ever.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy's partying and living the life. And
yeah, can't you tell by my fancy ceiling lights?
You always know by the ceiling lights. That's all I'm saying.
It's true. It is very true. Yeah, so I'm in North Carolina while Rob is sadly not.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's okay. We're here. And we're super excited. I'm trying to figure out how to phone run everything because I don't have my laptop, so I'm doing everything on my phone.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, but I think I'm getting there. So, all right, I think we're good. Okay, so Rob, who do we have tonight? Because it's gonna be friggin' sweet.
It's going to be really awesome. This guy wears many hats. He's been in the hobby for a long time, and he's doing some really big things to really stir up the hobby right now. Tonight, we have got Ryan McVeigh from VivTech, and I'm super, super pumped to have him on tonight. There he is!
What's up, dude?
What's up?
Good, man. How are you guys doing?
We are doing great, man.
Partying. I'm still alive. Can't beat that.
Too old for that stuff now. I'm just boring. Just work all day until 3 a.m. and don't sleep for that reason. So.
I mean, these ceiling lights are really just here for show. So
I saw the t-shirt you took off before you sat down.
Amazing.
So, dude, how's it going? I know that right now you're doing some big work. Like, even as you're doing this right now, you got work stuff going on. So VivTech is just in you're just starting to show off what's going on. So, and I'm super pumped. I listened to a couple of the other podcasts that you and Erica have done, just trying to get a feel for what's going on. So for people who might not know who you are, maybe a quick synopsis of what you're kind of built up to now and then what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's see. We want to do an hour and a half podcast. That's one question. That's the only question.
Perfect.
No, I've been in the hobby for a long time. I was every little kid running around catching toads and garter snakes and all that stuff. And when I got into college, I actually went to school for engineering, for architectural engineering. And then worked at a pet store, Hoffer's Tropic Life Pets in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was gigantic. Like, we had an alligator pit and a tortoise pit. It was super cool. And I worked there, and that's where I actually found the hobby and the hobbyists. And that was in 2007, 2008, so around then. So I had always kept reptiles. I'd always kept and done a lot of stuff with them. But until then, I'd never really seen. I lived in a tiny little town of 300 people in the middle of nowhere. The reptiles I had were the ones I caught in my backyard. You know, like I said, garter snakes, decays, tiger salamanders, whatever. So that kind of was my thing. And then I got into the hobby that way. And then I started doing education through that store and doing outreach and stuff. And then I really, really fell in love with that. Kind of found that my passion for reptiles it's more of a passion to educate other people and get them excited about reptiles than I am for the reptiles themselves almost. I still love them, they're still everywhere around me, but that's something that always gets me excited, is going out and doing education. And that's why after school I graduated, I moved to Madison. I started the Madison Area Herpetological Society in 2010, and that's grown into 3 different branches in the state of Wisconsin and still growing. Even through COVID, we're still growing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we've moved to a really digital platform. We're doing a lot of live interviews and things like that to just keep people interacting. And so that's been really cool. And then in 2015, I got the opportunity, because of my work with the reptile community and stuff, I accepted a job with Central Garden and Pet as the marketing brand manager for Zilla. I kind of ran that brand of reptile products, and I did that for 6 years. And it was an awesome experience, and I learned a ton of stuff about the industry. I got to see it I've seen it from the hobbyist side, I've seen it from the nonprofit side, I've seen it from the rescue side. Now I got to see it from how some of these major retailers see it, how the big companies see it, how a product goes from an idea to be something you use in your house, all of that stuff. So, and really got to do some awesome stuff with Zilla and the team there. And then this year, me and Erica, my wife, have kind of been mulling over some different changes in life and where we wanted to go and what we wanted it to look like. And took the opportunity. I actually stepped down from my position at Zilla as the brand manager. And I still contract with them as a consultant, so I'm still working with them on some things and still talking to them. I still love the team there, and I think I'm really excited to see what they do. But for me, this was kind of a way to step away and do something else. And all the major retailer, like the major pet companies, the product companies, Zoo Med, Exoterra, Zilla, they're really aimed at that entry level, and they have to be because. Like there's the higher up the level you get in experience, the smaller the group gets. So if you look at people who are just on breeders, that's a big group of people when you're talking like a rack built. Like if I built racks here outside of Chicago, like that would be good for me in the Midwest. I would be able to cover, I could sell there. I'm not going to sell 40,000 racks versus 40,000 aquariums and things like that. So the benefit of those companies need to do those products that are in those stores to keep the volume they need in order to make it worth it for them to exist and to be able to do what they do. And that's why you don't see Zoo Med and like Exoterra, Zilla, whatever, making racks or making crazy heat tape or anything like that. Is they don't have a place to go with it, and they don't have a really good way to access those people. Because once you get to that intermediate experience level, you kind of don't go to pet stores that much anymore. You don't. I mean, you're at shows, you're looking online, you're buying from other people, you're kind of figuring things out, and then you're not as much hitting up a Petco or PetSmart or whatever, unless you're there for something else and you happen to grab something, So and that's where there's a huge group of us that just kind of, we might know a good store we go to and get our thing once in a while, or we buy our stuff online and we kind of, mix it up. But there's not ever really anybody that's really focused on that group. And that's kind of what we decided we wanted to do, was we wanted to bring a lot of really cool technology to the hobby and get it into people's hands, like into the advanced keepers, the breeders, the intermediate keepers. And it's all stuff that an entry-level person, if they're excited and they want to look into it, absolutely can do. But the intermediate and the expert keepers are going to get more excited about it. They're going to put more behind the technology. They're going to get more excited about the technology. And we're all tinkerers, so this is a big thing for us. And then kind of let all the knowledge of what me and Erica and the people working with us have, put that into the products to make everybody successful, but they don't have to know why. And I think that's one of the big things that's a big point for us is there's this mentality that we all get frustrated. That, mom took her kid to Petco, they got a leopard gecko, they got a kid, they literally read nothing, they go home and it dies. And we all get frustrated and we all complain about everybody needs to educate themselves more. They need to do more research. Anybody seeing that changing because we keep yelling it louder? Nothing's happening. No. It's not. But the thing is, we're looking at it wrong. So we're looking at it like these people should know better. But dude, if you don't know anything about cars and you go to AutoZone and you say, hey, like, I just need a thing, you expect that whatever they give you is all you need. Then you get home and realize you also need to know how to install it and what to do with it, and you have no clue, and you're over your head and all that stuff. And that's where people get lost. They get scared in the hobby. They walk away. Or they just go home thinking what they got is all they need. But they don't understand the components that were put into those kits and why they were put in those kits. So sand for a leopard gecko, not a problem if it has a good humid hide and ingredients and all that other stuff. So even a bearded dragon, same thing, not a problem if it's getting hydration and good nutrition and all the other. So there's all of these components that aren't in there that they don't think about. So they go in, they kind of go in thinking they're getting everything they needed, and they're missing massive portions of what they need, and they're failing. And what I'd like to see happen is you go in and you buy a box that has everything you need, and it's been created knowing that you're not going to go become some herp nerd. You're not. These people expect that everything they need to know is in that box. So it's about time we start looking at it like, how can we get everything they need to know into that box without them having to know it? And that's kind of what we want to do with a lot of these products, is put all of that knowledge that we all have in the industry, all have in the hobby, and put it into these products so that anybody can be successful with them. But they don't exactly have to know the specifics on the wavelengths of the bulbs and why it does what it does and how it does what it does. They just need to know, you need this, go put it in there, and that's what you need.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
That kind of seeing the world, seeing everything like that, and starting to look at the hobby a little differently is kind of where, we decided to step up and created VivTech this year. And VivTech is our reptile products company. We're looking at different technologies that exist in different parts of home improvement or other places and manufacturers around the world, and just kind of seeing what cool stuff exists out there that we could kind of tweak and to make better for reptile keepers or use for reptile keepers. And then the other part of it is, because we're going to sell online through our website and then direct to independent retailers, we're able to keep our costs way lower than everyone else, because we aren't going through multiple step distribution. We're not going through Petco PetSmart's distribution and then these major retailers and their incredible margin requirements that they think they need. And we're able to be a lot more friendly with the pricing of this new technology by being able to go direct to people. So that's kind of another, that's how the world's going, but it's not how a lot of the industry is moving. They're very slow to stick to brick and mortar, and I'm totally for that. I love the independents, and that's why we're selling to, once we have wholesale stock, we're going to wholesale to the independents directly, so that no one takes any more of the margin except them. So that way we can go right to them. They can make the most margin. And I want to work on the other things we're doing with this company, is things like trying to help get the right information to the stores so that they can have better information for their customers, and getting it to the point where we can get these things in the hands of breeders, but also give them the knowledge they need in order to be the resource for other people, and start to bring back that mom and pop pet store being that place we all hung out at when we were kids and learned, instead of now just this mentality of pet stores and things. Just, it doesn't have the depth it had. Being a breeder and being the person that cared for and bred these animals, people get this puppy mill idea out of breeders, and this whole stigma about breeding and reptile community and the industry and the toxic and blah blah blah, and it's clouded with so much dirt that we just want to help use this to clean it up too, and bring back the good name of people doing it the right way, and help people improve to do it even better too. Because we're relying on big companies that are focused on the beginner to come out with innovations that allow us as expert level and intermediate level people to do bigger, better things, but they're not going to do that because they can't bring this kind of technology at this price. So they price themselves out of being able to do anything, and then no one's there to pick up the slack. So hopefully this is an opportunity for really the hobby to take a big step forward and start giving a lot of opportunities for us to have some really cool technology to move our hobby forward and move our husbandry phenomenally forward, because husbandry needs to be about 20 years ahead of where we're at.
Yeah. The other day we were talking to Ozzy from Ozzy Boyd, and he was just mentioning how the hobby has got so much room for growth. And he was kind of talking about as far as the breeding side of things and the way that people are keeping animals. But I think that also plays to the way that we're doing products and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it's 100% so the 3 pillars for VivTech, just because it's me and Erica, is innovation. It's got to be innovative. We got to start bringing, even when I was with Zilla, every single thing I worked on was, how can we make it better? How can we do something better? How can we keep coming out with innovative new ideas, thinking about things differently? And that's a lot of what we released while I was there. And so innovation's a big one. The other one is husbandry. How are we driving husbandry forward? And not just lighting or bedding or things like that, but even just the ideas behind husbandry that we have. Here's a thought for everybody. When you create, if you were to, even you guys, even me, if we were to tell somebody, this hit me 4, 5, 6 months ago, but if you were to tell somebody how to set up their leopard gecko, you tell them, put in, bark or whatever, and then do hides, and then do human hide over here. You can maybe a dish with worms and calcium over here in a water bowl. Basic setup. That's what we tell them. But if you think about it, a leopard gecko spends 90% of its time underground in a burrow because it's too hot out or it's hiding. And then it comes out for 10% of its day to find food, to bask, to whatever. So we create a 20-long tank full of sticks and hides and all this stuff. And the human hide, which is really its den, is this big in the corner. So 90% of where the animal spends its time is 10% of the cage. And 10% of where it spends its time is 90% of the cage. And that makes no sense to me. So just trying to bring some new aspects to that, as well as is keeping those ideas and trying to come up with husbandry tools and decor pieces and things that allow us to actually create a habitat like that.
That's awesome.
I think that's perfect. Like that's exactly the way you need to go about it. But I think I want to circle back to something that you said before, where like, you know, we're consistently getting more and more aggravated saying, well, these people should be researching and know what it is. And you're right, nobody's really taken the time to be like, okay, but what can we do to make things more accessible to those first-time keepers? And I think that's such a massive niche that has needed to be filled for many years. So I think the stuff that you guys are going to be doing is just going to take right off, because you're going to fill such a big void that we just like to bitch about, but not do anything about.
That's kind of the thing, man. Like, dude, we've been in the same boat. Like, I don't know of a time where I've sat around with a bunch of guys like you guys or whatever at a show and just sat around with some breeders and friends that have been in it for years and not just gone, what the hell? How do we fix this? How do we do something? And everybody hates it, and it's the same thing everybody talks about. But then at the end of the day, we're like, I don't know, we're just going to have to cross our fingers and hope. And I'm like, that's me and Eric are sick of it. We're sick of hoping that things are going to change, and it's time for somebody to step up and do it. So there was no herp society in Wisconsin, so I stepped up and did it. There was no rescue in the Midwest for reptiles, so Eric stepped up and did it. And for this, we're just going to step up and do it. That's what we do. But the other thing, too, is, like, it's not even just that. Like, the whole idea of starting this business, like, oh, we could be making all this money. Like, I don't really care. Honestly, I doubt I will end up even paying myself in the next 5 years. Like, Erica got a good job, so now I don't need to pay myself. I can live off myself. Like,
that's what's that.
Whatever. I'll be your she's the whatever.
This beer, come on, bro.
Well, like, so yeah, she's the sugar mama. So I'm like, but it's not that at all. Like, honestly, the financial aspect of this has never even been part of our conversation. It's all about, like, how can we make the hobby better? How could we use this to Erica? One of Erica's big things is to stop gatekeeping, where people are like, the fact that I have to, the way I explain UV, you guys say you listen to some of the other podcasts, and when I'm explaining UV, how many people are just blown away by what UV does? I read this in papers from 1940. Like, how is it that new? And it's that new because people aren't talking about it. People are, you get a lot of the old time herpers who are like, they don't need it. We bred them without it. You just, if you got anything, you throw a tube on it, it'll be fine, whatever. You know, you get this mentality, so people never dig into it. And now one of the biggest and most important parts of keeping reptiles in captivity is something that most people don't think they need. And that's crazy. It's just because of the way people act and the gatekeeping, and or like you get people who, you see a guy that hatches out like Bolins or something, and then you're like, dude, here's this group of people who are all trying to do that. What did you do? And they're like, it's my secret because I did. I'm like, that's, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, you did nothing. You were no one and you did nothing. So like,
true.
That's
true.
it, man. Like, I tell people all the time, the only reason that I have this much reptile knowledge is so that I can spread it to other people, because it doesn't do me any good to sit in my head.
Yep. I'm just saying, man.
But yeah, I mean, so like it's the community, it's building this, it's getting more education out there, changing the minds of people. But on top of it, and especially just because like this is something important to me and Erica, off the top of the net profit at the end of the day, every single bulb, every single thing we sell, 5% of the net profit gets donated to USARK and USARK Florida from every single item we sell, no matter where it is or when it is or on sale or not. It doesn't matter. And then another 5% is being split between a list of conservation, in situ wildlife conservation organizations. So
That's
Turtle
awesome.
Tortoise Preservation Group, Turtle Survival Alliance, International Iguana Foundation, Herpetocultural Conservation International, a lot of those guys doing stuff like that, Croc Fest with IUNC, Croc Specialist Group, like all of those. And so when you come to our site and go to check out, it's actually going to ask you, hey, here's a list of 10 or 15 organizations, all with links so you can read about them, or like a quick little pop-up that'll tell you a quick blurb about what they do. And then you can click which one you want your product's donation to go to. And then the website will track all that, and then quarterly we'll cut checks for all those organizations.
That's awesome.
That's huge.
That's really cool.
Like I said, it's all about getting everybody back together. Like, well, how is it that me as a reptile keeper doesn't get along with this other guy who's a zoo guy, who doesn't get along with this other guy who's a veterinarian, who doesn't get along with this other guy that's a biologist? Like, we're all reptile nerds, all of us, every single one of us. And there's no reason that all of that crap has to happen. And the amount of power and knowledge, not even just the power to move people and be able to do big things with the industry would be great. But just imagine the amount of knowledge that could start flowing if all of those minds actually just started talking. Like, it's
That's
unreal.
so true.
I mean, it's unreal where we can.
Yeah, no, it's so true, man, and it's an interesting thing to talk about and think about, because I mean, I think about like back in the day when ball pythons were like the thing. Nobody talked about what they were breeding. Nobody talked about what they were putting together, because it was all like, you can't know how I'm going to make all of my money next year, you know. And now you got the guys who are crushing it out there, like Ozzy and Justin, who are like, yeah, this is what I made, and here's how I made it, and I'm going to sell everything out. You know, so you guys can do the same thing. That's something that 15 years ago you would not see that happen, like, ever, you know. So it's a wonderful thought to be able to get that started in the rest of the community, and I hope it's a trend that continues to pick up, because I mean, you're right, man. Regardless of what facet of the industry you're in, we're all reptile lovers. We're all these weirdos that, you know, have lizards and snakes and shit in our house, you know.
Like,
you know,
this is cool for us. This isn't normal to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're all this kind of normal, which is like normal.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, no, and there's just so many opportunities there. So that's what we're trying to work on too, is ways to improve the community, improve husbandry, give the reptile community a better name, give back to conservation, because I don't care who you are. You can't say, it's like when we post those memes, like, you can't say you love animals if you don't love the scaly ones. You can't say you love reptiles if you don't give a crap about the ones in the wild. Like, that's the way I look at it. And at some point, I want to still go see that crap. So I'd like it if we all paid a little more attention and saved it, so I can go see it.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I want to go to Savu Island and see Savu pythons. I want to go catch super pythons in Lesser Sunda. You know, I before COVID hit, me and Erica were planning to, this last November to go to the Solomon Islands and just sit in the jungle and watch spinulosus. I'm like, I just want to sit there with a notebook and just watch them. That's all I want to do. I don't care if I have to be and it's 110 degrees. I just want to watch them. And I'm just going to find out. 8 bug. Crap.
Yeah.
Dog hole. Like, but I want to go see what are they doing with their day? How are they spending it so that I can recreate this better? So that I can take measurements when I'm there. I can look at the dirt and how are they, you know, everybody thought they're tree monitors. They're not at all. They're actually huge burrowers. So it's just, there's so much bad information, because especially when we go and we're like, all right, this is cool new reptile. I found a picture of where it's from. And from the picture, there's trees and leaves. So I'm going to make it a tree leaf home. That's not, no, it lives in a crack this big in that rock in the background. And then it goes from the top of the rock to bask. Then it goes to the side of the rock and eats a bug. It sees something that goes under the rock. Like, those habitats are violently different than the one you're looking at in this giant picture. You know?
Yeah, dude. And I think that one of the things that people don't really take into consideration is just those like small tweaks that you can make that can make this huge difference and like shift in how we do things. Because when you're mentioning how you want to take, was a percentage of your profits and donate it to conservation, it's little things like that can really set the precedent. Like Ship Your Reptiles made it so that when you're checking out, they've got that automatically checked $1 extra. You're not going to notice that extra dollar is going straight to USR to help save your rights to keep reptiles. And most people, they would say, oh, yeah, I love USARK. I want to support them, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, they're maybe not donating, or they're not thinking to donate, or they let their membership expire or something like that. But just that one little dollar, they've generated so much extra money for USARK just from that little bit that people don't even take into consideration. And when you talk about, take a little bit of that profit that you're making and already designate it for that purpose, it can make this huge change, in bettering not just like the products and the way that people keep things, but also the animals' conservation in the wild and these organizations that need our support going forward to help save a lot of these species that we love. Because a lot of people don't think about that sort of stuff. Like crested geckos are huge, and if people were not breeding them or whatever, they'd be gone. Like a lot of that stuff would just be gone. And it's going to happen to species that people care about right now, but they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking, oh, well, I want to get one of these things, or, oh, it's going to get shut down for export. It's like, how about we save where they come from so that there's not this like looming probability that extinction is coming and people are causing it.
Or the shut off. Like the quota just goes to zero. And guess what?
Zero, and that's it. Yep. And then we're done.
Yeah, and
it's
after
crazy.
that stuff comes, dude, electric blue day geckos. That has got to be the poster child for everybody, including myself, going, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. But they're $20. I'll grab some after I get this stuff organized, or I'm doing these other projects. And then they just shut off. It's like, now they're 400? What?
Yeah.
Crap. And then there weren't many in captivity, and only certain people were working with them, and they just, like, that was a huge nightmare. Paradora androensis, same thing. Dude, those used to be, again, $10 gecko wholesale. And then they just disappeared, and they were $200 a piece, and everybody's like, Jesus, even all the Europlatus, I mean, it's happening all the time. So, like, that's the other thing, too. Like, so our pillars, again, like, innovation, husbandry, and conservation. But conservation is not just wildlife conservation. It's conservation of our hobby, conservation of the species that exist available within our hobby, conservation of wildlife. So, and conservation of energy, things like trying to be as green as we can. It's an overall attempt to be better when it comes to all of those pieces and to conserve all of those pieces of things that are important to us. Because that's the other thing. Like, I know everybody's waiting for somebody to fix the hobby, and everybody's waiting for someone to make the next cool thing. Everybody's also waiting for everybody to stop, like, to fix everything when it comes to all the fighting and all the USARK and all the fights. Like, guys, you got to do something. Everybody has to do something, but it doesn't have to be a lot. And that's why we kind of built this into the foundation of the business. Is it's easier to get people to donate when it's just, hey, you're buying this and you're paying this price no matter what, and I'm going to do the donation for you. Here's something cool that you want. I'm going to do the donation for you. We're going to make less profit, and I'm okay with that. We're donating it ourselves just because you bought our bulbs. And that's just a way for people to get more involved. And hopefully over time that continues to sink in a little bit more. Like, you actually, like, we'll donate for you, but you could do it too. Like,
you could,
yeah.
And just get more of that information out there and get people more alert of what's going on around them. Because that's the thing. Like, and that's the other thing, like the husbandry piece. We have to be better. We have to drive it. We need to drive the hobby forward. We need to drive the husbandry forward. And we need to get ahead of all the crap going on right now. Like, the reports coming out on whether racks are good for snakes or not. And guess what? They're not. And they don't look good on any keepers who keep racks. And there's problems with these studies and things like that. Like, there is on a lot of them. But it still came out, and it's still going to be interpreted by whoever wants to interpret it. And guess what, guys? It's not going to be the people who love snakes and racks that are going to be the ones that want to interpret it and use it for something. So, like, we have to continue to work to do better and find better ways to do this stuff. To find better ways to improve the care of the animals and understand their understand, like, not exactly emotional, but kind of understanding their behaviors, their natural behaviors, what makes a difference. So, like, how we can enrich their lives while we're keeping them. We've got to get a better mentality about this a little bit, and it doesn't need to happen overall. I mean, it should, but I do think that as a hobby, we also kind of need to break apart who we're talking about too, because there's very different levels of experts or breeder or whatever. You have guys like Nerd, where you have racks of animals meant to be bred for the production of producing animals. It's not in a negative way, but it's a farm. It's an animal production facility. So those animals aren't pets. They're not a small collection. It is a production facility for animals, which is needed. And as long as those animals are given like what they need and they're not being neglected, that's fine. But I wouldn't put the same conditions on them for care or for husbandry or for like what kind of enclosures they use there. I wouldn't put that the same as I would like, okay, you're gonna keep 6 animals. I'd hold you as your 6 animals to a higher standard of care because you have 6 and they're your pets. And even if they're just a breeding project, they're still more than just a farm, really. You know what I mean? They're more than that. So you should treat them more than that. So I think like we kind of got to break it apart too. I think we need to stop looking at the big facilities as examples of what we should get to. It kind of gets to the point where like the big breeders get put on a pedestal if that's where everybody wants to get to, but nobody ever really ends up getting there. And then they kind of just, it ends up being a way to cut out a lot of husbandry and just keep a lot of stuff without having to do as much. And I think it needs to be, we need to change it around. Like when it comes to the hobby side of it, I want to see the guy that has a 3 foot by 3 foot by 8 foot tall enclosure for his anole. Like that's what I see. Or the dude that's got the 45-year-old box turtle. That guy. I want to talk to that guy because that's awesome. Like the newest morph and things like that, that's all cool. And I hope everybody keeps chasing morphs and loving all the reptiles that are out there. But the biggest collection shouldn't be the thing that makes you who you are. It should be your ability to care for, understand, and add value to the hobby through, or even into your animals' lives through your husbandry.
Yeah, I think that there's a huge shift going on with that right now too, because as people are starting to get more involved with reptiles, like at a greater level, like it's not just some niche thing that some weirdo does, you know, oh, it's just the people who are tattooed and pierced and listen to metal and all that sort of stuff. It's not just those people anymore that keep reptiles. It's not just me. There's way more people than me. I don't know what's going on. Everyone just showed up, and I'm like, what? Oh, now it's cool. Okay, I see how it is. But what I'm saying, like, there's so many more people who are getting into it now. And I've seen this like huge shift, not even of just like when I go and do programs and stuff, when I get people who come here, I don't see as many people who are like, I just want to have, 5,000 snakes. I see a lot of people now who are just like, I want to have some really nice display cages in my house. I really want to have like a slice of the jungle or the slice of the desert. I want something where I can appreciate this animal in its enclosure and just have a couple animals that I really, really love. And I see this like huge shift over to people doing that. There's still people who want to have, a decent sized collection and want to produce a bunch of snakes and, that's whatever. But I see way less of that nowadays than I did 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Yeah. I think what happened is that like the hobby started getting like more investor. It got more mainstream. Leopard geckos, corn snakes pushed that way. Ball pythons were 25, 30, 50, 100 grand for a snake. That was it. That was what pushed it over the edge. Yeah. And then everybody wanted to be investors and do this whole big thing. And then they got into racks and walls of tubs. And after a while, like if you remember for a while that you love reptiles, looking at walls of gray drawers is not as fun as like this than watching them move and interact. And I think everybody slowly kind of started going back the other way where, more natural, more bioactive, more things like that. We want to get more into their habitat. And that was another kind of piece of me and Erica talking and being like, all of these things we want to do, all of these like ethics and goals that we have that we want to see the hobby and these what we want to see it do, it's all kind of falling into place in a really good time right now to continue to keep pushing that forward and start feeding that. So like we'll talk about some of the products, but like there's additional extra UVA in some of our bulbs because it increases serotonin development in their brains and their natural behaviors and things like that. Like we're thinking about that stuff, not just here's a bulb you need, but here's here's some extra pieces. Your animal's going to live better, and here's why. And I think we're at a point now where people are more receptive to that, because we've actually, even for our social media, had people put, I can't wait to get this for my snake. And it's like, dude, 10 years ago, I couldn't have put a gun to your head and made you get a UV bulb for your snake.
Yeah, for real.
Literal studies that were still done at that time still wouldn't have happened. But
Yeah.
now I think people are more open to it. And I think that now is the time to really start feeding that niche and feeding that excitement with a direction. Because right now I think there's a big push for that, but everybody's kind of like, I see more people building their own enclosures, which is awesome. But again, we're getting to a point where everything's kind of all over and we're starting to have to make our own stuff. And that to me just says that it's time for something better.
Yeah. I think one of the things that pushes it too, like, you know, Rob and I have talked about it a few times on the podcast, is like, as social media has developed and we see these new trends, you know, I mean, think about what 12 years ago, the biggest person on social media was Brian Barczyk, you know, and it was the first time we were ever allowed access into a reptile breeding facility that was that size, you know. So that was what was like, oh my God, that's the pinnacle, you know. And then other guys started to jump along, but it was still always like the larger scale breeders that were in their big facilities showing off the coolest, you know, usually ball pythons, and that was it, you know. And then as more people started to figure out, oh, hey, I have a camera too, I can make stupid YouTube videos, it was, look at my racks that I built, and I have this spare bedroom that's now got 400 snakes that I'm trying to maintain while having a full-time job and trying to live a life, you know. And now that more people have jumped onto it, I mean, what we can do with our phones now is absolutely ridiculous, you know, filming 4K on your phone, you know. So you can be like, hey, take a look at this tank that I just built out for my poison dart frogs, and let me show you the progression of its grow out over the last 6 months, you know. And that's starting to gain that popularity, you know. So I think that's really been a big shift in that way of thinking as well.
It's one that I'm excited about. Like, I love seeing that. I love seeing people do that, and more so just because people are starting to look at reptiles a little bit more like, there's more we can do here. That's the cool thing with reptiles, and that's the thing I think people miss out on. Like, one, everybody stops saying reptiles are easier to keep than everything else. It is true, but it gives people this idea that, like, they're easy.
They're whatever, yeah.
A rock that you do nothing to. That's why there's a rescue in our house. Like,
yeah,
they're not easy. They're easier to take care of in the fact that they poop inside a box and they live inside a box and you don't have to walk them or do anything. That's how they're easy. But other than that, they're a lot more complicated. You have to, if you can get the time to put in to understand where they come from and how they live, and you can to create a habitat to match, to really like accentuate those pieces of their life they need, like their hiding spot, their human hide, all that stuff, fake caves, whatever. If you really do that well, then they're super easy. Like, once you have that done, it's like dart frogs. I tell people all the time, people freak out about dart frogs. They're way too hard to keep. It's like the saltwater aquarium. It's way too hard. Like, it's not too hard. You just have to get it set upright, and once you set it upright, you do nothing. Like, 32 BioCube, and people are like, oh my God, it's insane. Dude, it's just wall-to-wall coral. I think I changed the water once last year. Like, the worst. Like, I feed my fish when I walk past it, and I'm like, oh, you look like you're going to die. You should have food. Like, but the more I would pay attention and, like, nitpick and clean and do water changes,
the worse it would do. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but if you let it get set up, same thing with reptiles. If you're like a dart frog terrarium, if you plan it out and you let it get built and you let it set up, like, the whole thing's done. All the work's done. Now you're just going to put a frog in there and flick some flies in it once in a while. Like, it's the easiest thing ever to do after you get to that step. Before then, it takes knowledge and research, and it takes a lot for you to trial and error and things like that. And that's kind of where, like, that's where I feel like the need is. I want to find ways to pull the trial and error that someone coming into the hobby would have, why they can't do that. Why someone who just decided they want to keep a reptile can't have a tank that's like a 55-gallon built-out enclosure. I mean, they can if they spend the next 6 months reading every Dendro board forum on building a tank, and they practice a lot. You know what I mean? And it's a lot. But, No, but like, but just all of that. How can we start to make that how you enter the hobby? And just I'm always thinking that. I'm always trying to figure out like how can we do that? How can I make it where like here's your kit, and your kit is a freaking rainforest in a box. Like it's the coolest thing ever. Not here's a piece of plastic that they'll drink water out of, and here's a rock.
Good luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that right, like you were mentioning earlier, this is right about that time where we talk about like a paradigm shifts and shifts in the way that people view things. I think that right now is a key moment in the reptile hobby. The last year in particular with COVID and the amount of people who've had time to spend time at their home and maybe look up I want to get a pet. Oh, look, a reptile's easier to take care of than a lot of these other things. And then maybe getting their first reptile and then sitting with it for a little bit and then really getting to look at YouTube videos and look at maybe boards or groups on Facebook or a little bit of this. There are so many people that have gotten into reptiles over the last year. It is obscene. It blows my mind how many people have gotten into reptiles in the last year. And one of the things that I think about, like having worked in a pet store and worked with getting people their first reptile and doing a lot of this sort of stuff, is some of the reptiles that like people are talking about, like, oh my God, these are like the best beginner reptile. I think about them and I'm like, they're not that easy. Like bearded dragons are the one that like pops right into the front of my mind. People are like, oh, it's the best first reptile.
And you're
I'm like,
no.
there are so much work, man. There's so much work. If you are not prepared to really devote some time and space and research into setting that animal up and money, exactly. It's expensive. Once you get it set up, maybe then you can kind of roll it back. But even then, just feeding them all the time, like people go crazy about their feeding schedule and all this. And I think that like it's about time. Like I was listening to you talk about the lights that you guys are working on, and your longevity of the lights and the different gradients of stuff that you would have for basking, stuff that's spending all its time out in the sun all the time, and stuff that's in shaded areas and all that sort of stuff. And I think that can really help out those people who are wanting to get that first reptile. Maybe they got pushed into something they're not quite ready for, but just cutting that one little thing out and having a little bit of that more information that you can get from your products, I think that that's going to be huge.
Yeah, and that's kind of Erica's doing a really cool job of coming up, and so is our other somebody else that's working with us, Justine Labello. Like the two of them are awesome, and they're going back and forth and creating these informational charts and diagrams. Like we're not letting out a lot of stuff right now, but there's an enormous amount of stuff that even for like pet stores, easy stuff for you to hand out and educate people. What is UV lighting? Like knock down the gates. Here's A, B, C. Here's what it is, what it does. Here's the studies on it if you want. Like we read all the studies and then we're gonna summarize them for you in blogs on the website eventually. Like, but like having all that information there. Here's why we think this. Here's the research behind we're telling you what we're doing. Not just I'm done. Like, hey, why are our UV bulbs? Why do they give the output they do? I read every article I could on UV. I've read bulbs from the last 75 years in other languages on UV, and like I can't find anything that says why the bulbs that we use give off what they do, other than like my only guess is that like in the early 90s, like before Gary came out with them in 93, 94, like there just was a room of like these give off this much, and it just kept going up, and then you looked at the edges and you're like, well, those guys died and those guys died, so go in the middle.
That's probably what it was.
So like trying to look at some of that kind of stuff. I'm like, we need to look at better. Like I have friends in Australia that I'm talking to, and I'm like, look, go find me a beardy. I know you're in the range. I know you know where they are, and I want you to sit outside with an umbrella and just stare at it and just watch it. And I want you to take a reading and then look at it and then tell me how long he was basking. And I want to know in a 24-hour period, how much time does a bearded dragon sit out in the sun? And while he's out in the sun, what kind of UV is he getting? And if I extrapolate that to microwatts per cubic square centimeter per hour, and then spread that out over a 12-hour period, can I get a better idea of what kind of UV they need? Like what it should be like all the time? Or can we create better bulbs that will allow them to get the intensity that they need but move away from it so they can be more natural in the way that they act? Things like that. Like there's so many pieces that we just need to do more on, and then explain once we know it, once we do it, getting that information out there so other people understand why it's like that, and that's the informational gaps in the gatekeeping is what kills us. So like that's a big thing you'll see with VivTech is it's going to be very transparent. Actually, at the booth at Schaumburg, I'm bringing Erica's dad's building me a display where you can plug in our bulb and one of our bulbs, one of Zoom, you can put in a mercury vapor, whatever you want. I'll have a table full of solar meters, and everybody can just sit there and test anything they want. They can bring over a Zoom Ed bulb, an Exoterra, whatever, and they can do it right there in front of us. So, like, if it's not as good, like, you're gonna look and be able to tell. And we can tell you, like, what's great and what's not, and why you would want this or that, and start to educate people about UV and stuff like that. But yeah, we're definitely. You guys can people can test it. We're putting everything that we're doing. We're trying to make very transparent.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that one of the things that I think about is like for a lot of the desert species, people are like, oh, well, it needs to have like this really crazy basking spot. It's got to have UV on it 24 hours or, at least 12 hours a day and all this sort of stuff. But one of the things that I was thinking about is like when I went to Utah last month, we were looking at desert tortoises, and we're in this area where you can spot them pretty regularly. So we went out in the morning and we're hiking for maybe 2 hours. And in the morning when it's, the sun's just coming up and everybody's just heating up, you'd see the animals out. And I brought a temp gun with me, and I'm just temp gunning the animals and then the ground around them to see where they're at, their body temp's at on the surface, and excuse me, and then what the ground is in the areas where they're at. And in the morning while they're heating up, the ground is sitting at like 95, 100 degrees, and their bodies would be down like, I think the lowest one I temp gun was like 82, and it was just starting to heat up. And then as we got into the heat of the day, I stopped finding them out in the open. I start seeing them in the shade of these bushes, and I'm temp gunning their bodies. Their bodies are at like 89, 90 degrees. The shade is at like 78 degrees, and then the sand next to the shade where the sun is at like 120 degrees. And people are just going, oh, well, he's sitting out in the sun. It's the middle of the day. He's going to be in the sun. And it's like, no, a lot of these animals take cover during the middle of the day. But if you told someone, hey, look, turn your UV bulb off for a couple hours during the middle of the day, just give them, the option to go in and out, or have a focused area where they can get their UV and then move away from it if they want to. People are just like, no, I read on the Bearded Dragon board on Facebook that they need a UV bulb. They go crazy.
I've had people argue with me about the UV bulbs, and I'm like, that I know how they're made, right? Like, I'm telling you.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You're still wrong.
I'm wrong. And I'm like, well.
Yeah, still wrong.
Yes. Like,
it's wild.
I completely agree. That's actually why none of our stuff is labeled as desert or tropical. That is my biggest pet peeve in this damn industry, is everything is desert or tropical. And on the front of a desert box is the damn dunes of the Sahara. And on the tropical box is the bottom 2 feet of the Amazon rainforest. And the problem with that is there's a crap load of habitats in between that.
Yeah. Legit.
So we're just like, hey, this is for one of the 500,000 animals that live in the desert, because there's like 4 reptiles that live on sand dunes. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's why, like, me and Erica have always hated that, and that's why we went with different names for stuff. So like the one that people would consider or call it desert, which would just be your high output UV bulb, is called Midday Blaze, and that's here. I don't want to talk about it, but like, so that's Midday Blaze. But like on the front of it, that's not a desert species. That's one of the highest UV needing animals that we keep in captivity. Cyclura. Cyclura don't live in the desert. They live on white sand beaches in the Caribbean at the equator on white reflective sand. They take more UV beating than any other animal, but they don't live in the desert. So I'm sick of calling it a desert. So that's your midday basking animals, the animals that sit out on a rock in the sun at noon, in the middle of the day at 2 o'clock, and just cook. Your Uromastics, your Cyclura, bearded dragons, even like collared lizards and stuff like that, all the time in the heat. And then, so there's a bunch of animals like that. And then the second one is jungle cover. And that's going to be for any animal that would see cover. Anything, whether it be leaf cover from a forest, whether it be jungle animals, tropical kind of species, or whether it be like the grasslands of Kansas and a box turtle. Like that's another great one that's hiding down in the grass, still getting a lot of UV, but it's fractured.
Yeah.
This is for that kind of animal. And then the last one is the one I think is going to be the hardest to get the hobby to actually.
What's it called?
It's called First Call, not Morning Call. Even though I don't remember the name. Well, no, because we've been talking a lot too about Rapashi, and so we were talking about Rapashi, and we were talking about Morningwood, because we're all joking about being able to name these literally whatever I want. And so we were talking about that, and now I get First Call, and I keep mixing up Morning Call, Morningwood, First Call.
Morningwood, yeah.
First Wood, whatever,
That's a big move. I'm just saying, you go with that one. That's a big move. That's a power move.
It's true.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's call the high bulb like 8-pound dong and just smack it on the table. But if you want to break this, we're mixing it up here,
That's
man.
That's a strong no from the PR department.
Yeah, you heard that? Yeah. That is one of the most iconic sounds in herpetoculture is my wife screaming my name at a high pitch. That's what they're going to be. I'm going to be remembered for one day. They're going to be like, did you hear that clip of Erica going, Ryan? And,
Ryan in the background, NARBC. Yep.
It's going to be in every Sounds of the Rainforest CD put out from now on.
As you're laying down, getting comfortable, Ryan, much faster.
Oh my god!
Real life, I get it. I know who I am. No, but the last one here is First Call. That one's gonna, I think, be our hardest sell, but it's low UV output. It's got double the UVA output as the high end midday blaze one, and it's got double the plant lights. So more for planted tanks for frogs, amphibians, a lot of the crepuscular species, geckos, things like that. It's really low output UVB, but they can get, it's such a nice focus spot. They can easily get away from it and get closer to it. They can regulate with it. And that's one thing too, I don't think most people realize is a lot of lizards, any lizard you see that has that little spot on the top of their head, the parietal eye, for anyone that doesn't know, there's an actual eyeball on the top of their head. It just doesn't have a lens, so it can't focus, but there's a cornea and an eyeball on the top of their brain, and it sees the light coming through that parietal eye in that clear scale. So they actually can regulate their UVA and UVB using that. And that's something that we didn't know. We used to think that was for predation. So if a hawk flew over in the shadow, they'd know. They've proven that that's not because of that, and they actually use that and use UVA to actually find basking spots. They actually don't use heat to find basking spots. They use UV. So that's something super cool. And these have a lot of UV because a lot of UVA and things like that, because that has a lot to do with how these animals see their environment and react to it. Not having UV on an animal's enclosure is like making them permanently colorblind.
That's wild. That's so crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what some of these we were trying to do with the different levels, give a lot of opportunities for different animals. But the LEDs, I've been wishing and hoping that these existed for 6, 8 years, no, probably 12 years. And I've watched them. And UVB diodes have been insanely expensive for a very long time. And getting the opportunity to work with some of these to actually bring LED, UVB, true UV LED bulbs to the market has been pretty awesome. I mean, 3 watts, they last up to 4 years. So ours are going to be warranted for 2 years. So if your bulb burns out under 2 years, we'll replace it. And then they're 3 watts, and the midday blaze projects UV 30 inches.
Wow, that's awesome.
Damn.
And they're actually dimmable as well. So if you wanted to put them on a ramp to ramp up in the day and then down, so you could peak your UV, you can put them on a dimmer as well.
That's super cool.
Yeah, so
I did not know that. That's awesome.
Stat, and then you could set it to dimming mode, and you could have it do a warm up and a cool down throughout the day.
That is so freaking cool.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's going to allow us to do so much. And right now, these are just I showed you the box is little, but
it's not little. It's mighty.
It's Erica says it's not little. It's mighty. Mighty box. She says big things come in small packages. That's because she's seen me undressed.
I wasn't gonna go there.
Whatever. I can say those things because I know it's a lie, so it's not a big deal. But no, so those three gold ones in the center, that's your UVB. The yellow one you see is your 6500K plant light, and then on the other side is UVA.
Wow.
So that's it. And this is where am I at? That big.
Wow.
That is crazy.
No, so I mean, and the outside is it's an aluminum casing, so it's made like this to help pull the heat away from the bulb, to be a heat sink, but it also makes them incredibly durable. There's actually quartz on the front of this. There's a quartz glass, so quartz glass doesn't have any effect on filtering UV at all. So there's no UV filter through there, but it'll keep it from getting wet. It'll keep it. You can spray it. You can do whatever. It's going to be fine.
That is
awesome.
really cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
The only weakness that the UV bulb or the LED bulbs have, and this is all LEDs that exist right now. So until they fix this problem, I don't have much of an answer for anyone. But if they get hotter than 90 degrees for an extended period of time, they can start to like burn out a little early. Usually you're good up to like 100, 105. But if you put it like in a dual dome with a metal halide, like it's probably gonna burn out in a couple months. So like that, like the warranty is like, you know, if you don't start it on fire, then we'll warranty
we'll replace it.
And it stops working after a day. Like I can't help you.
Yeah.
But that's all LEDs. It's not just ours. That's just LEDs in general. And that's kind of what kept LED from entering the reptile market, was because of the heat restrictions. But at the same time, how many times is that bulb going to ever be that hot?
Yeah.
Even if you hang it in the enclosure, there's no enclosures you keep regularly at 90 degrees. And it's not going to be sitting in the basking spot. So I don't think it's going to be much of an issue, but it'll be something to make sure we call out. But no, I mean, to me, it's just we're doing accelerated testing, lifespan testing, and over the ones that are at like 1.5 to 2 years. And we have all the data for long-term testing, but we're doing more. Every single time we get a production run, we're pulling samples and putting them on test just to make sure. And we're estimating that, and based on the data we have already, 4 years of life, 4 years without having to change it.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that really is
honestly,
amazing.
The bulbs might burn out before the UV needs to be replaced.
Wow.
That's sheesh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That really is awesome. Because I mean, anybody that uses any sort of light knows the worst part is when that bulb burns out, or when you're like, oh, 6 months has passed. Guess who's got to drop another $80?
And that's what kills me. The other thing too, that's the other thing that kills me. And this Erica pushed this because it's kind of, we look at things very differently, and that's kind of what makes us a really cool team to me. Is because I'm a very big picture guy, but I'll sometimes miss the little steps. And she's very detail oriented, but she doesn't always see the trees, the forest between through the trees. Complement each other really well. And then for me, I come from a natural history, like husbandry side, and she comes from the veterinary husbandry side. So she's looking at things like, I look at, there's a problem, here's a solution. She looks at it and says, here's a problem, what's causing it? Can we stop the cause? So we're kind of looking at it for different angles, and it allows us to come up with some unique things. And one of the things she brought up is that like we can put out all these cool UV bulbs, but most people don't even have a way to measure their UV bulbs, or no. Like you replace it at 6 to 12 months because the manufacturer said so, but you don't know if it's still good. You don't know if it was good when you took it out. You just assume it was, and if your animal's not dead in 12 months, or you don't have to go to the vet, you hope that it was a good bulb. That's kind of crazy to me. The one thing that's absolutely keeping our animals alive, we're just like, I trust him. Really? Because I know of some, there's definitely one of the major companies that's not Zilla, one of the other two, and it also doesn't start with a Z, but their bulbs actually don't produce enough UV for your animals to use. So people, I know Erica saw that within the clinic, people coming in using those bulbs, changing them every 6 months and having that written down in a little log, and still having metabolic bone disease and hypocalcemia because they didn't produce enough UV in the first place. So in order to kind of combat that, because it's a lot to ask every single pet keeper to buy a $250 to $500 meter, we found a meter that we're going to release that is, there we go. So Sure Sun UVB reader. So it's a UVB meter. It's half the price of a solar meter, so it's hopefully a lot more people have access to be able to start tracking their bulbs, checking it. You know, I mean, even with ours, like it's gonna last 4 years, but still check it. And then it's gonna come with a log. Erica's actually created a log, so you can write down like the brand of the bulb, what it is, the date you checked it, the distance you checked it at, what the reading was, and then a formula that says basically at a 30% reduction, replace the bulb. And probably replace it with one of ours because then you don't have to do that again for 4 years. But and then on top of it, anybody who takes that log when they're done with it, whether it's our bulbs or not, if they filled that log out for their bulb, they can send it in, and we're gonna have exclusive swag for people who do that. So like truly, really, like it's not like you go and some pet stores will have the T-shirts that were the swag giveaway for something else. Like this will be just for people who are interested in allowing us to use their data to improve what we're doing to help improve the hobby.
That's awesome.
Well, I think it's a cool way to give back. Like I think that's awesome. All the readings and stuff,
Heck yeah.
The notes we take, like it's all just sitting in notebooks around our house. Well, what if you could send it somewhere or even take a picture on your phone and send it off quick in a message, and then all of a sudden that's being used for something bigger and better.
Yeah,
hell yeah,
100%. I definitely think that's a great way to give back and get people also motivated to do it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get free stuff for checking on your animals and keeping them healthier anyway.
Woohoo!
Cool with that. Like,
yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's the thing, man. That's one thing that kills me with the hobby and seeing stuff lately is we've gotten a lot. Cancel culture has happened a lot in the last couple of years. This attacking each other, and it's gotten a lot of like, just I don't know. It's just gotten where it's all negative, and there's so much awesome stuff that just needs to come out and be shown. And there's so many, I don't know. There's so much opportunity to make this hobby amazing and can continue to grow it in a way that the people that I see leading it sometimes aren't thinking like that. They're thinking about doing the best they can for the now and what they can do to get ahead now. And nobody's really watching the future and where we're going. We're just we're all running and hoping we're going in the same direction. And unfortunately, like, as you guys know, you see the hobby, we're not. We're all over the place. And
yeah,
this is, like I said, again, this just continues to reinforce that opportunity for us to like hopefully get people in line in the same direction. And you can't just tell everybody, hey, you're doing it wrong. I don't like how you do it. You're wrong. You need to fix everything. All of this, if you're not a USARC member, you shouldn't be allowed to do anything. Or if you breed spider ball pythons, you're bad. It's all the same stuff. But really what it should be is I don't care what anybody, like I do. Like, please don't like beat up kids and put it on YouTube. But otherwise, I don't care what you do.
Unless they deserve it.
But like, it really should be, I was going with that, man. I had it and then I lost it. But no, like we don't need to badger people into supporting the hobby and growing. We need to inspire people to grow and do that. And that's what we're trying to do. That's another bigger piece of like just all of this is if we do better and we provide the technology and the equipment to help everybody else reach the goals to be better that they want, then we can influence people to move forward and get them to where they're excited to and get their become, that's the word I'm looking for. I want people like the people that are really doing well to be the people who are looked up to, and that we're all constantly trying to get better. And this is just a way to keep doing that, keep putting that stuff out there, giving these people the tools they need, and then inspiring them by showing them what you can do with it. Like, I can't badger somebody to do better. I'm never gonna get a Facebook group and argue someone into doing better with their animal. I can continuously post really cool pictures of my planted tanks, all the different stuff me and Erica are doing with hand taming our animals and trying to do more enrichment and things like that, and get people to be like, that's really cool. Maybe I could do that. And that's what you can do. That's how you can influence people. You be a leader and you influence people by by showing them something that they want to achieve, and then being the person that they want to follow to get there and giving them the information they need to follow in your footsteps and grow that way. You can't badger them into being better people.
True.
Yeah.
Very, very true. That's awesome.
Hell yeah, man.
I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm super, super excited. I'm not gonna lie. I've been watching this as you've been dropping little, little things that you've been doing and listening to the different podcasts that you've been doing. I'm really excited. And then you're premiering stuff at Schaumburg, right?
Yep. So at Schaumburg on the 19th is when we actually are going live with our website and with sales, and the company is. That's it. That's our debut. So I'm not at all freaking the hell out lately. I'm totally. But no, we're. I mean, that's why there's people at my kitchen counter putting stickers on things and checking, and they're measuring all the bulbs, and every single one that came in is getting measured and checked and verified that everything's within spec. And yeah, but we're premiering on the 19th. That's when we're launching is at NARBC in Schaumburg. And then we're going to launch the website on the 19th as well. But orders won't open up until whatever's left from Schaumburg on Monday morning. So whatever stock we're left with, which honestly might not be any, and I'm sorry if that's the case. But I mean, I'm not sorry. I'll be really happy that the first weekend we had went that well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'll still kind of feel bad that everybody's got to wait for me to get more stock in. That'll come in a couple weeks, but the website will be updated very often. The Facebook, social media, all that stuff will be updated often. For anybody that does get to come to Schaumburg, a couple other things we're doing. We're giving away free snake bags. Yeah, like really nice ones, heavy. Like this is like the bag your girl's like Gucci purse comes in, like that really nice bag. And then Erica, so we wanted to do nicer bags. So we have this is Gen 1, and then I got them, and then I was like, we can make better ones.
No, that's Gen 2.
This is Gen 2. So Gen 3 is coming, and we're like, all right, we have a lot of bags coming. We're just going to give away Gen 2. And when the other ones get here, we'll sell those. So, so we're just going to give them away. And they're just a cool heavy-duty snake bag. And then Erica came up with something that I kind of think is cool. I wasn't on board at first, but I kind of can't argue it anymore. These, like, stickers. So this is just a sticker. It's a vinyl sticker that, like, as a breeder, right? So you're bagging up a snake. Usually we write on the bag or we don't write anything and we throw the snake in the box and it goes. And then somebody gets it like, how many times have you looked at a snake and been like, crap, when were you born? And you were het for that. You came from what's his name? Yeah. This, you can write all that stuff on there as the breeder. All the information is on here. And then you take this and slap it on the bag, throw the snake in it. And then when the person gets it, they have that sticker. They can pull it off and put it on their tub, put it in their records, whatever they want. And Erica tested those stickers and their durability by slapping them on the backs of our kids while they ran around last week outside. They dove in the pool with the sticker on and it didn't come off. So we're pretty sure your snake can eat the bag and you'll be good.
That video needs to be on YouTube. Beating up kids with vinyl stickers. Yes.
But like, yeah, she was like, all right, girls. And she patted them on the back as they walked out the door and none of them knew the whole day they had stickers on their back.
That's awesome.
Back all sweaty and wet and covered in crap and they got rained on and like, we're like, man, this is really good testing. That came off. So that was cool.
That's awesome. I love
anybody
that.
who shows up and buys a bulb, well, the first, until supplies run out, which is the first 200 people get one of these. So a friend of mine made these with us. They're propagation stations. So if you're keep live plants, you can cut off clippings of your favorite plant. You can grow them on your desk. And then when it's ready to go, you throw it in your tank, take a clipping off something else, stick it in the tube. Just something.
That's cool.
Just something cool.
Maz's design?
And it was done by Maz's Designs, which is another local woman-owned company. And I don't know if I said that, but VivTech is actually owned by Erica. So this is a woman-owned business as well.
Hey.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
So, and that's a big thing. Like misogyny in the hobby pisses me off more than almost anything. Because like some of the most intelligent, badass people in this hobby are women that most guys won't even look them in the eyes when they go to the booth. I've seen people walk past Tracy Barker to talk to Dave. Like, Dave doesn't know crap about his snakes. She does. Like, he just knows stuff about crap in the wild. Like, I love David Tracy, but I wouldn't. Tracy Barker talks. Everyone shut up and just
listen. Just listen. Literally.
Yeah, so like seeing that kind of crap just kills me. So Erica's even looking at like making shirts that say like I'm hot and I know my shit when it comes to reptiles, and then just being on the VivTech shirt, and I'm like, you know what? Like the corporate side of me, like being in the corporate side for so long, I'm like, let's not do that. You know, like on a Cheerio cereal box, we're not going to do that. But on the other side, you know what? We're not going to mix up the hobby and change things if we let that crap just keep happening. Go to town.
True.
Do whatever you got to do.
True.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah, if one of our largest reptile expos can consistently have some idiot dressed up in a T-Rex blow up suit running around scaring the shit out of people.
Yep. I'm like, man, yeah, that's what we need. But like, like I said, like there's so many badass women out there, and I hope that they get their time to shine. And it's not just girls that like crested geckos, you know, like.
True.
There's such badass people out there, and it's between that misogyny and the gatekeeping and just the idea of like the old school OG keepers, and they know everything, but they still build a wooden box outside in Florida, and that's how they keep things. It's also, if you live in Florida and you say that you breed animals, but all your animals live outside in cages, you don't breed crap, you're a farmer.
You don't breed shit, yeah.
If I breed alligators in my basement in Chicago, I'm God to you. If you do it literally in their habitat in Florida because you put a fence around the Everglades and then they crapped out the eggs in the pile they were gonna anyway, and then you collected them because you happen to live there, you're not a breeder. You're just basically the same thing. You're doing the same farming they do in Indo. There's no difference than the farms in Indo to doing that.
Oh, that's great.
Oh yeah, that's fucking awesome.
All right, that was my
I'm not ready to hear about it yet. Oh my god, dude, that's crazy.
I mean, totally. Like, if you're there, dude, your backyard is the perfect habitat. Use it. Hell yeah, use it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Don't go walking around swinging your energy like, hey, I bred this outside.
Yeah.
Literally,
look what I did.
Of its habitat.
Yeah.
Like, that's not as impressive as if you did it in Canada. Like, that's impressive.
Yeah.
True. In Florida is that impressive.
True.
Sorry, guys. I love you all.
That's great.
I love it. I love the Daytona show because of the diversity down there. But I also do.
Kick your ass out of it.
Will not. But I do also. I love the diversity and how people can keep stuff and the cool crap down there. But I do also love it when people like. There's some modest people down there that are like, I just feed them. It's really easy. It's Florida.
Yep.
Like, and those guys, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. High five, dude. You're still doing something cool. You still have to know your stuff. You're fighting off raccoons to not eat your turtle eggs. Like, this isn't nothing. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But
farming ain't easy, but it's farming.
But it's farming. Yeah, like you're not cycling a habitat to mimic an island in the South Pacific and it's a box this big because everywhere around you is -48. Like, that's impressive. Like that's the guy you're like, all right, tell me more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I keep iguanas outside in Florida. You mean like the wild ones that live outside in Florida?
Yeah.
That's cool. I like your cage and that looks like a healthy animal, but it's cooler if you did it in Duluth, Minnesota.
Legit. 100%. Okay. Well, dude, we're kind of winding down our time here. But we have one question that we ask everyone. It's like our closing question to kind of put it all to a head. And that question is, right now, in the hobby, in the world of reptiles, be it something that you're doing, something that you saw somebody else do, something that you saw online, what has got you excited for the hobby right now?
That's a good question. Like, I'll be honest, and not to like toot our horn, but VivTech is one of the bigger things that's gotten me excited, period. Even if it wasn't me doing this, I think the stuff we're doing is going to change the hobby. But outside of that, man, there's a lot of good stuff. I like we were talking earlier. I like seeing the trend of people starting to see their animals as more than a collection and more of a collective of animals that you have. And it's not just like they're not cards anymore. Now it's, like I said, the fact that we put up UV bulbs and I got anyone that mentioned ball pythons is insane to me. But that just to me proves we're on the right path because they still totally use UV light. And they don't all have to live in drawers. Like, seeing that stuff is cool to me. I love it. I love seeing it. And that's what gives me the most hope for the hobby. Now, the only way this could get better is if everybody that was that adamant about reptile care was also that adamant about donating to USARK and keeping the ability to keep those animals, so that wasn't just something we remembered when we're old men.
Legit.
True.
100%.
That's
Hell
the
yeah.
only way this hobby could like totally knock me to my knees and make me just cry tears of joy, is if we hit that point where it's USARK is not, it's not a thing you tell people. It's something that you just expect. It's like you just expect, oh yeah, you came to the show, you're a USARK member, you know about it. That's how it should be. Like it should be weird when people are like, what's USARK? It should be like, what? That's like saying,
Yeah.
that's how it should be.
100%. Hell yeah. I agree completely. That's awesome, man.
Absolutely.
Well, we're gonna do what we can. So
Sweet.
Get
So
yeah.
if people want to find out more about you, VivTech, the things that you guys are doing, where should they follow you?
Everything short of smoke signals. I'm pretty sure you can find the two of us if you're on any social media. But VivTech products on Facebook and Instagram. They can find me and Erica on Facebook and Instagram. We're all over the place. And then VivTechProducts.com is the website. Right now, it's just a page with our logo, which should have a countdown till Saturday that may have gotten mixed up, but it'll be back on there. And I know it sucks. No, I don't have all the information, you guys. Everybody that wants to hear about every single thing that this bulb does, it's behind that curtain that opens on the 19th. I promise it's there. I promise there's cool stuff. You have to wait for it. That's all I can say. But no, that's, yeah. Find us, VivTechProducts.com. Yeah, shoot me some smoke signals, text messages. I think I'm on Snapchat, emails. It's like 11 emails. Like, yeah, it's not hard to find me.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Dude, thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Dude, we appreciate it.
I thank you and everybody over here who's like, dude, he's everywhere. I get it, and I apologize, and thank you for listening to my dumbass over and over and over and over. So I appreciate it. I do. I really do. I really appreciate all the love and the support that the community is giving me and Erica and what we're doing. And I'm really hoping that this can be something where we all look back and just go, remember how it used to be? Like, we did it. We got there. Like,
hell yeah.
It's happening. I don't fail. I don't do things if I don't think I can be successful. And this is something that I have a lot of stock in. So I'm pretty excited to see where it takes us.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Dude, we're going to have to do a follow-up after you've been doing this for a little bit and how the premiere goes. I really want to hear more. So got to do this again sooner than later.
Watch our Facebook and Instagram. I'm sure we'll be doing lives from the show. So
Hell yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for coming on. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Thank you guys.
Take care.
Boom.
Boom. Hell yeah.
That was great. That was great, man. Ryan is absolutely wonderful. So next week we get to do this in real life, in person. So we'll be back to our normal scheduled programming. And I'm still away until Thursday. So the audio only version of this will be up on Friday this week. So hang tight. So that means if you're going to share this or tell people to check it out, they've got to come to YouTube unless they check it out on Friday, and then it'll be available everywhere. So that's it, guys. We will see you next week. See ya.
Later.